Brave, Frozen, Jumanji, Ratatouille, Poltergeist. What do these words have in common? Many things you might say, but one of them is that they are all one-word titles to movies. And I thought this week, in my dazed musings, about what the title would be if we were living a movie. What would our one-word title be? And again, there are many possibilities, but one of them certainly would be thanks. And perhaps this past week, being down and realizing that people were praying for me, even people who themselves are suffering with certain problems and ailments, who because of that help inspire me to write a lesson such as this. Thanks. I get up and I go into my kitchen and the sun is shining and I have food to eat and jammies I can wear every day. And just so many good things. And above all that, a God in heaven and people who love me praying for my well-being. And all I could think of was thanks. In everything we are told by the apostle, give thanks. Giving thanks through him to God the Father. The fruit of lips that give thanks to his name. All throughout our Bible, there is this wonderful word, thanks. You know, we Christians have submitted ourselves to the authority of a dictator. And we can read about the heart of this dictator and the kind of individual he is as he's looked at in prophecy. As the psalmist writes, my God, why have you forsaken me? Far from my deliverance are the words of my groaning. Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within me. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaves to my jaws, and you lay me in the dust of death. For dogs have surrounded me. A band of evildoers has encompassed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones. They look, they stare at me. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. That's his heart. That's his capacity to love people even who hated him. But he goes from this cross from this torture, from this agony, and then the Father exalts him to his right hand. And we understand that not only is he a dictator, he is a benevolent dictator. Because it doesn't matter to what lengths he had to go to save you from your sins and me from mine. Even though he was the Son of God, when he humbled himself to such an extent for you and me, he was exalted to the right hand of the Father and still prays for us every single day so that we might continue to have access to our Father. If God did not spare his only Son, but freely gave him up for us all, how will he not with him freely give us all things? What does that make you want to say?
Yeah.
Thanks. All things. Everything Jesus inherits, you inherit. Co-heirs with Christ. And so we ask a question, and I think it's a really good question. As the psalmist writes, what can I offer to the Lord? What shall I render to the Lord? What can I give him for all his benefit toward me? For all that he has done for me, what can I give him? Many years ago, I had an individual that I was studying with, and this was many years ago when I was still a young preacher at Sumner. And one of the things he said to me, he asked me a question one day, and I must have been talking about some of these things. And he asked me, well, what has God done for us? And I realized that he didn't know very much. But what that says to me is that there is at least an implication there that there might be other people that have that exact attitude as what has God done for us? What has he done for me? In the book of Micah, in chapter 6 and verse 6, the prophet comes and he says, with what shall I come to the Lord and bow myself before the God on high? I mean, what has he asked us to give him for all that he's done for us? Shall I come to him with burnt offerings, with yearling calves? Does the Lord take delight in thousands of rams, in 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I present my firstborn for my rebellious acts, the fruit of my body, for the sin of my soul? What has he asked of us? for all that he has done for us. Would this be enough? Burnt offerings, yielding up, sacrificing our wealth, 1,000 rivers of oil, your firstborn child. Bring all that and offer it to God. Did he ask you for that? He has told you, oh man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice. When you know what the right thing to do is, do what is right. Love kindness. Be kind to your fellow man. Look for opportunities to exhibit that fruit of the Spirit and be kind and to walk humbly with your God. Listen to what he says. Humble yourselves under his mighty hand and walk with him. That is what he has asked of us. But how many ask the question, well, what has God done for me? You know, in the book of Luke, in chapter 17, there's a story there that is told about an encounter that Jesus had with 10 leprous men. And I've never been around anyone who has leprosy. I don't know what that looks like. I've seen documentaries and things like that, but it's just not a disease that we see here in this country, to my knowledge. But it certainly was in Palestine in Jesus' day, and of course, going back many centuries. But in this account that occurs here in Luke 17, and we read it verse 11, while he was on his way to Jerusalem, he was passing between Samaria and Galilee, and as he entered a village, 10 leprous men who stood at a distance met him, and they raised their voices saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. When he saw them, he said to them, go and show yourself to the priests. And as they were going, they were cleansed. 10 of them. Just we're going to the priest and boom, they're healed. Now, one of them when he saw that he had been healed, turned back, glorifying God with a loud voice. Now, listen, glorifying God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at his feet. He fell on his face at his feet, giving thanks to him. And he was a Samaritan, which is significant in the point Jesus is making. So here you have some people who are blessed. They're happy. They know how fortunate they are. They've been healed of a terrible disease. And there are people who are blessed, however you define that. And that doesn't always mean that you have the best of everything and life is easy and things are comfortable and everything is pleasant, it doesn't always mean that doesn't always mean you're blessed. But however that is defined in a given circumstance, there are people who are blessed, and then there are people who are blessed and thankful. God causes his rain to fall on the evil and the good, and his sun to shine on the righteous and the unrighteous. He provides for everybody. You can hate him. You can ignore him. You can sin against him and be hostile to him, and he still gives to you. But some people are thankful. Some fall so speakingly on their face at his feet every day and thank him just for this little piece of chicken I'm about to eat. Thank you. I like chicken. If all the chickens were gone, can we make more? No, they're just gone. So I thank him for that piece of chicken. Mashed potatoes too. It's all from him. Now, there are people that enjoy those things, but they just enjoy them. They don't thank anybody for it. Hey, I went to work. I worked hard this week. I made this money. I bought this food. I'm going to eat this food. Thank me. You know, you consider what we learned in Romans 1 about this. You know, we looked at the situation and condition of those Gentile nations. And one of the things that Paul wrote about them, that even though they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks. And so we saw a pattern there that begins with thanklessness, that then goes to foolish speculations, where man is raising his thinking and reasoning above God's reasoning. And then they begin to worship the creature rather than the creator. We're worshiping stuff. I mean, if I don't have something beyond me to give thanks to someone to thank for what I have, well, then here I go. I can rely on my own reasoning. What else have I got except created things? And then gross immorality. And then we come to the place where God is not even acknowledged. And that's what we live in. All around us. But the psalmist's focus in that 116th Psalm is on your benefits toward me. So yes, Jesus healed 10 lepers. And I often think about when Jesus, that's the reason I put this graphic up, this particular one, is because you hear Jesus, this man comes back to him, falls on his face at his feet, giving thanks. And Jesus says, were there not 10 cleansed? But the 9, where are they? These were 9 Jews. These were 9 people who should have been falling at his feet anyway. But the one that you would least expect came back and thanked him. And boy, is there a lesson there for you and me. So what do we have to be thankful for? You know, if I was just doing a lesson on what do we have to be thankful for, and if I was going to sit at my desk and try to just, that's one of those sermons you go, I'm not going to mess with that this week. It's too much. I don't know where to start. What do we have to be thankful for? You know, when we talk about prayer, it is true that in prayer, words of adoration and praise, we give those because of who God is. The prayer of thanksgiving is offered because of what God has done. So let's take a few minutes and just think about some of the things that God has done. And I start with the mundane. That just means the earthly things. We sometimes in our prayers, we thank God for every spiritual blessing, and we thank him for the physical blessings that sometimes we get so anxious about. Okay. So Jesus in Matthew 6:31, do not worry then, saying, what will we eat? Or what will we drink? Or what will we wear for clothing? For the Gentiles eagerly seek all these things. For your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. So he says the Gentiles eagerly seek for these things, worshiping the created things, thinking our life consists in our possessions. Remember what the Lord said about that. Not even when one has, he says, be on guard against every form of greed, for not even when one has an abundance does his life consist in his possessions. It's not your life. The stuff comes and it will go. Your life is what he's concerned with. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. All these things will be added to you. I'm not going to spend, I'm going to say it publicly and before God himself, I'm not going to spend one single second of my life ever worrying about if I'm going to eat, if I'm going to have shelter, if I'm going to have clothing on my back. Ever. Because he told me, don't you worry about that, Darrell. You just put me first. Now, I may not always have the best clothes or the best place to live or the best food. As far as I'm concerned, I already have that. And if it becomes less, that's okay. I'll still have what I need to live and serve God. So he provides us with all of these things. All these things will be added to you. They're secondary. He provides us with, and here Paul is speaking to the rich there of his day in 1 Timothy chapter 6. Says down here, we're in verse 17, instruct those who are rich in this present world not to be conceited, Because you know how people with a lot of money can think they're better than you. Okay. Well, I make all kinds of money, so I'm a little bit better than you. So he said facetiously. Instruct those who are rich in this present world not to be conceited or to fix their hope on the uncertainty of riches. Okay. Because people can get puffed up. Look at what I have. Remember Nebuchadnezzar? Right? But on God, who richly supplies us with all things to enjoy. Okay? All things to enjoy. Storing up for yourselves the treasure of a good foundation for the future so that they may take hold of that which is life indeed. There's your life. And then he provides us also with various trials. And as I said, a blessing here may be a curse over here. Consider it all joy. Learn this. Okay. Learn this. When you encounter various trials. But see, he's going to say the word next that's really important. Knowing. Okay. Knowing that the testing of your faith produces. Okay. It isn't for nothing. It isn't in vain. It produces. And specifically, James says it produces endurance. But endurance in and of itself isn't the end. He says, but let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be complete, perfect, entire, lacking in nothing. Which seems to tell me that if I'm suffering something, I must be lacking in something. And I have the freedom to say, you know what, Lord, what do you want me to learn? Now, if you're suffering terribly, I'm not necessarily going to come up to you and say, you know, the Lord's trying to teach you a lesson. I'm not going to do that. But I can do that to me. What does he want me to learn? Okay. And of course, when we consider this, at least I do, I like to go back to the book of Job and just skim some things that we read in the book of Job to help us understand how this whole thing works. So James says, consider it all joy when you encounter various trials. Peter told the people of his day, Christians who were suffering, that they were going through various trials. But the end result was obtaining as the outcome of your faith that was being tested, the salvation of your soul. There was an end in sight. It wasn't for nothing. It wasn't in vain. But in Job chapter 2 and verse 9, I like to start with what Job's wife said to him and what he said to her. Then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. I mean, look at you. You know, everything's gone. You're sick. You know, just God is obviously not in your corner, man. Just curse God and die. But he said to you, you speak as one of the foolish women. Shall we accept good from God? Do you accept good from God? Do I accept good from God? Every single day. Shall we accept good from God and not accept adversity? He didn't say not complain through adversity or murmur through adversity or get mad at God because you have adversity. He said accept it. Embrace it. Do you know that they both come from the same place? In times of prosperity, rejoice. In times of adversity, consider. For God has made the one as well as the other, so that man may not know what will come after him. In times of adversity, consider, think, go into that house of mourning, take it to heart. Let's jump to Job 42. And in Job chapter 42, verse 5, it says, Job says, I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear. Now, here's the result of all this suffering. Unimaginable, incomprehensible suffering that this man endured. What was the end result? He says, I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear. I've heard some things. I've learned some things about God. I've talked about you. I've meditated on you. I've sacrificed to you. I've heard of you with the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. You mean a man like Job that God bragged to Satan about? Have you considered my servant Job? The man that we read about when this book starts, and he's sacrificing for himself, and just in case his kids have sinned, he sacrifices for them. He is fastidious, he is faithful, he is serving God with everything that he's got, and he is struck down with a physical malady. I mean, I've had a boil in my life, and you say, oh, you remember that? Yeah, I sure do remember that. I've had one. This man's whole body was covered with them. Can you imagine? I don't even want to get into the details of what he was doing while he's sitting there with these sore boils all over his body. And he goes through it. And when it's all done, he says, man, I thought I knew God. I thought I really knew him. I thought I had it all together. But when I walked into a room, people stood up. My pathway was bathed in butter. Everything was wonderful. I was respected. And I didn't know a thing. And how did he come to that realization? This man who God knew could endure, he knew he could endure it. He wouldn't have put him through it. It wasn't easy, but he endured it. And at the end, now he knew something. He understood. He had insight and a relationship with God that he never, ever had before. That's a blessing. And God gives you and I various trials. I think James puts this in such good perspective. A good way to end that section off. In the book of James in chapter 5 and verses 10 and 11, James 5, 10 and 11, where he alludes back to this very thing here that we've been talking about. And he says, as an example, brethren, of suffering and patience, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. We count those blessed who endured. You have heard of the endurance of Job and have seen the outcome of the Lord's dealings. that the Lord is full of compassion and is merciful. Are you kidding me? The Lord let that happen, right? But it was a blessing for Job. And just because we suffer and have hard times and hurt, it doesn't mean the Lord's not compassionate. It doesn't mean he's not merciful. It just means that me as his son, he wants me to be closer to him. He wants me to understand what I didn't understand before. So with patience, we endure. And then last, but certainly not least, we have an indestructible, we are part of an indestructible kingdom. One day, this building will be gone. We won't be in this world anymore, but we will be alive, and we will be with God, and we will know, I can't even say because I don't know, but we will know, and we will experience things that are so far outside of our ability to imagine that, hey, you know what? I can serve him today. I can serve him joyfully because I ain't worried about tomorrow and yesterday's history. I can serve him today. And when the hour of our departure comes, he'll be there just like he promised. So God says through the psalmist, he who offers a sacrifice of thanksgiving honors me. The thank offering that was given under the Old Testament was purely voluntary, and you could offer it anytime you wanted. Purely voluntary, spontaneous. You felt really thankful one day and something had happened and you're so grateful to God, you just take that sacrifice and you say, Lord, thank you, anytime you want. He who offers the sacrifice of thanksgiving honors me, gives glory to him, and to him who orders his way aright, I shall show the salvation of God. So what can we give to God for all of his benefits toward us? What shall we render to the Lord for his benefits toward us? Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. That's what we can give him. We can give him our gratitude. We can give him our thanks every single day, and he's honored. That's a fact. See, there's a bunch of facts in the Bible. We just need to believe them. It ain't about you being honorable. It ain't about how good you are. We're always trying to make it about us, aren't we? Just understand that when you thank him, he is honored. Just accept that fact and thank him and know you're honoring him. You're honoring his name. And he likes that. He likes that a lot. So our movie is called Thankful. Let us be thankful every day in every way. If there's anybody in this room who needs our prayers, our support, if you're going through a hard time in any way, we're here for each other. We want to pray for each other. If you have that need, and if you're a person that is hearing this message and these, this wonderful relationship with God and that the Bible describes is not yours because you haven't submitted yourself to him, Take the opportunity while you have it. Okay? We're here to help you. He's here to help. Okay? Be his child. As together we stand.